Do you think you know your camera? But the chances are there are quite a few hidden tools that you may be aware of but possibly aren't aware of that can really improve your photography. These tools are often overlooked by beginners and even intermediate photographers. So today we're going to have a look at some of the best hidden tools that you may not be aware of. Let's get into it. So before we go too far, it's important to know that these tools, these settings, whilst common to most modern cameras, will have different places in menu systems. So I'm not going to explain how to set these particular tools up. You're going to need to read the manual and have a look for your own particular brand of camera. So let's get into it, and let's start with the highlight Blinkies. Now, this is a tool that is kind of a throwback to video shooters, but it works really well for photography as well. And basically what it does is it flashes black and white in areas of the screen that are highlight clipping, so that it helps you prevent getting that highlight clipping that you can't pull back. Now, this is particularly useful if you're in areas of really bright, high contrast, where perhaps you're trying to expose for a shadow and your highlights are popping out and you're not getting the right exposure. Just being able to pull your exposure just inside those blinkies is a really useful tool to have. And it's well worth setting up on your camera. Now, some of you are going to find them distracting. I sometimes do, but there are other tools that we will look at in a moment that can give you that really good, accurate exposure information, particularly if your highlights are clipping. So number two, and it comes back to number one, is the histogram. Now, I'm sure many of you know what the histogram is, but do you really know how powerful it is, particularly if you're using the live histogram on your screen whilst taking? Now, the important thing to remember is that the histogram is being defined by the JPEG recording. So you do have leeway at the top and bottom at the shadows and highlights of your image. So be aware of that. However, if you think of the histogram as like a bucket, when the water fills up in the bucket and tips over the side, you're overexposing or you're underexposing. If it's going off on the right-hand side, you are overexposing. If you're going off the graph on the left-hand side, you are underexposing. In both cases, your shadows might be crushing and your highlights might be clipping. Now, if you use the histogram in combination with the Blinkies, it's a really powerful way of making sure that you never get any blown highlights in your images. Now, if there's one thing that really bugs me in photographs, and I see it time and time again, it's a horizon that's not straight. And there is absolutely no excuse for it in modern cameras. In older cameras, in analog cameras, film cameras, it could be quite difficult. If you were working down really low and you were trying to get that horizon straight, if you're a bit older like me, it could be a real struggle to work out where that horizon was. But today, there's absolutely no excuse. And there's no excuse because every camera that we have has a horizon correction tool. And many of them not only correct in this plane, but they correct in the up-down plane, the yaw plane as well. So you can check if you're converging verticals and stuff like that. It's really powerful thing to have. It's well worth leaving on your screen because it takes up no space. It will warn you if your image is on the slant, and it avoids having to use the excuse, oh, I was shooting a Dutch angle, when you clearly wasn't. The next one is auto exposure bracketing. And again, every camera has this, and every camera allows you to define the bracketing as well. So what is auto exposure bracketing? Basically, it's a system that allows you to take multiple images and the camera will expose under, over and correct exposure. You can take between 3 and 9 images usually, and you can expose from up to 3 stops under to 3 stops over. I have mine set up to take 5 images with 2/3 stops difference between each of them, and I have the correct exposure as the middle exposure. That way, when I put them up in Lightroom or I put them up in DxO Photolab, I can see the progression from underexposed to overexposed. It's a thing that you will need to set up in your menu. You need to set it up the way you want it, and then you can assign a button onto your camera body to set it up, or you can set it up in your quick menu so that you can quickly access it. I have it set up on one of the joystick buttons to the right so that I can go to that and it's got all my custom shooting modes, including brackets. Now, what I tend to do is I tend to put a 2-second timer at the beginning of my auto exposure bracket as well, just so that because I'm shooting from the tripod, it allows me to step away from the camera before the bracket starts shooting. And as I've alluded to, another really useful feature are the custom buttons on your camera. My camera is set up with multiple different custom buttons for white balance, for auto exposure, for focus area, for spot metering and matrix metering, and I even have a button assigned for video when I can actually crop 1.5 times in so that I can change this 20 to 40 to a 30 to 60mm lens. Setting up your custom buttons is a really good thing to do, and it allows you to create your own personalized workflow when using the camera. A word of warning though, don't chop and change them around too much. You're going to be relying on muscle memory to know where those buttons are and what they do. So once you've set them up and you're happy with them, leave them as they are. Now, if you've ever had trouble focusing, particularly if you're shooting macro or you're shooting really fine landscapes and you want to make sure everything's in focus from the foreground all the way to the background, another tool you can use is focus peaking. Now, focus peaking puts a colour contrast line around areas that are in focus, and most cameras allow you to define the colour of that contrast line as well. I have mine set for red, but I can set it for blue, green, yellow, multiple different colours. And what it does is when you focus either automatically or manually, it will show you the contrast areas where it's in focus. So, for example, if I was photographing this cathedral behind me and I wanted to photograph on the rail, when the rail was in focus, it would be in a higher contrast and this peaking colour would appear around the rail. It's a really powerful tool to have, and it really helps you nail your focus much better, particularly if focus is absolutely vital to get in the image that you want. There's another one that's really useful. It can be a little bit limiting, but if you're, for example, shooting a wedding or you're shooting wildlife close up and you don't want to disturb people, then use the electronic shutter. Most cameras have a mechanical shutter that will raise up, expose the sensor to the light and then come back down. But an electronic shutter raises that mechanical shutter out the way and then literally just turns the sensor on and off when you're making that exposure. It makes your camera much quieter. You might just hear a slight click as it takes the image, but technically you shouldn't hear anything at all. There are some limitations. Very often you will find there's limitations in shutter speed. You might find that you get your verticals out if you're actually panning shots. For example, shooting a bird in flight, you might find a tree in the background. Its vertical might go off. But in general, it's a really good tool, particularly where you need to be in a quiet environment. So these are just a few of the very many features that your camera will have. To me, I think they're some of the most powerful that you can use. And I use combinations of them all the time in my photography, particularly focus peaking and particularly the histogram. The histogram I can't do without it's always on my screen. If you've got some other tools on your camera that you think are really useful, let me know in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, a like would be fantastic and a subscription would be even better. And I really look forward to seeing you in the next one.